How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on your home of the Pitt Panthers Football Network for your NCAA recap of Week 13. We take a look here. The Pitt Panthers coming off a big blowout win, 52-13 against the Duke Blue Devils, and with that, they have a couple of recruits that decided it was time to sign their name on the dotted line and commit to the Pitt Panthers for next season. So that's fantastic that the Panthers were able to do that, and we'll take a look at who those players are here. Coming up, our first recruit that was able to finally sign with the Panthers is Will Frazier, a 4-star receiver, ton of speed, 6'5" as well, so he could be a dangerous target out of Conroe, Texas. He fought off Michigan, Texas, Nebraska, and Auburn for the Panthers to obtain his signature. Ton of speed, decent route running, okay with everything else, really good carrier, so once he gets the ball, he's dangerous, but getting in the ball and having him hold on to it is going to be something he's going to need to work on, so we'll see what he's able to progress into in a very deep, young Panthers receiving line. Another potential target for catching the ball, Andrew Jefferson of North Naples, Florida. The Panthers fought off SMU, Ole Miss, and some other schools in order to obtain his signature. Doesn't look like the best target in the world, but he's 6'8", 265 pounds with decent hands, okay speed, should be a very good pass catching tight end. And with the Panthers losing 2 senior tight ends, they have one weighing in the wings in Chris Clark, but Jefferson's going to be good depth for the Panthers. And obviously Pat Narduzzi, very happy with the signing. Pitt is it, hashtag Hail to Pitt. But around the rest of the NCAA, in addition to the Panthers' big win over the Duke Blue Devils, Miami, who the Panthers will be taking on this week, remains undefeated, 11-0, 7-0 in conference with a blowout 42-6 win over Virginia. Virginia Tech 24-17 over Wake. Syracuse goes to 6-5, becomes bowl eligible, beating North Carolina. Louisville goes to 8-3 with an easy win over Boston College. Clemson with a fairly straightforward win over an FCS squad, 31-3. NC State beats UTEP to get closer to bowl eligibility, and Georgia Tech 27-3 over an SCF's opponent, keeping their bowl hopes alive as well. In the top 25, Baylor was able to just outlast Oklahoma State in double overtime, with Hawthorne catching a pass from Russell for the victory, and Baylor goes to 8-2 and is looking very solid out of the Big 12. Tulsa pulled the upset on undefeated Houston. A big game passing-wise for their quarterback, Greg Ward Jr., loses some steam in his Heisman candidacy. He still had 200-plus passing yards, 60 rushing yards, so he had a solid game, but not enough for Houston to get the victory, unfortunately. Penn State goes to 9-2 with a win over Nebraska. Alabama escapes another heartbreaker. Jalen Hurts with a touchdown pass in the third quarter to give Bama the deciding points as they escape Florida with a 17-14 win. Ohio State here, J.T. Barrett had the game that's going to seal him there. He had 6 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown in this one in the win over Indiana, which is an unbelievable performance. Michigan beating Iowa. LSU with a victory over Texas A&M. Leonard Fournette with a really big performance, 2 touchdown runs for him in that victory. UCLA obliterates Arizona State to maintain their 1-loss season so far. And then Oklahoma barely escapes Kansas State here. Kansas State nearly mounted a massive comeback with 17 straight points, but the lead Oklahoma jumped out to was just too much for the Wildcats to come back from. Navy goes to 9-1 with a victory, and Oregon State pulls the upset on Washington. That's losses in 2 consecutive weeks now for them after losing to UCLA. They fall to Oregon State as well and drop to 9-2 overall due to the Huskies. So a real damper on their season, but they're still going to win their division, and that's going to propel them into the Pac-12 title game. They should still win their division, hopefully, at the end of this year. But like we said, J.T. Barrett, player of the week, 7 total touchdowns, 298 yards, and we think it might be the performance that seals his Heisman campaign with a victory like that, and just an unbelievable performance for the redshirt junior quarterback. In the ACC, Ben Boulware, right outside linebacker for Clemson, 2 sacks, 5 tackles for a loss, and he forced a fumble to get Defensive Player of the Week honors. And Eric Dungey in the win over UNC, 313 yards passing and 4 touchdowns for the sophomore quarterback, who's really the one bright spot of that Syracuse offense. When he has a great day, they have a chance to win. Like we mentioned, J.T. Barrett, he's still top of the tables in the Heisman watch. Greg Ward Jr. doesn't fall down because he did still have a good, solid performance. 2 total touchdowns, 270 yards, but unfortunately for Houston, that is the loss that's going to break any chances they had of sneaking into the national title game. Tago Smith back in the conversation, potentially after another big game, and Leonard Fournette putting up a 2-touchdown performance against Texas A&M. So those are your player honors. What happened last week? So what does that leave turning into this week here around the NCAA recap, the top 25 and everything? Miami and Pitt the showdown for the ACC Coastal Division title. And really, if Miami wins, they could potentially be into the national title game, because then they'd have to face Clemson. If they win that, I mean, their route to the national title game would be pretty close to assured. Clemson's going to be the opponent that will take on one of those two teams in the ACC championship game. But dealing with the rest of the NCAA, we take a look at the top 25 poll. Bama, Oklahoma, Miami, your top three remain, but Ohio State now up to 4th after Houston goes down with that loss. UCLA's up to 5th, Clemson up to 6th, Pitt all the way up to number 7. So we're going to have a number 3 versus number 7 battle this week, which is unbelievable. What a ranking, what a season for your Panthers so far. It's just been unbelievable. What a ride it has been for the Pitt faithful. Michigan up to 8th, Navy up to 9th here in the polls, and LSU rounding out the top 10 after their big win over Texas A&M. But if we look, Baylor up to 11th, Florida State to 12th, Houston dropped all the way back to 13th following their loss, so disappointing for them. 10-1, still a very good season, looking to win the American Conference. Wisconsin only up to 14th after their win. Washington, the big dropper in the polls, they dropped 10 spots after losing in overtime to Oregon State, so at 9-2, they're all the way down to 16th in the polls, which is really hurtful to them. Penn State 17, Louisville 18, TCU 19, Texas A&M drops back to 21st with their loss, and Cincy, Middle Tennessee State, and Vanderbilt are into the final 3 spots in the polls after a couple other teams have fallen out. BCS, where it really comes down to, Alabama and Oklahoma is your matchup right now, but Miami and Ohio State are waiting in the wings. If they can win their conferences and their conference title games, they could leapfrog Oklahoma, who has the weakness of not having a conference title game. But UCLA, if they win the Pac-10 or Pac-12 and they get some help, could be in. Clemson, if they beat Miami and win out, they could get in potentially with some help. Pitt could get in with some help. So there are a lot of teams that are, within strength. It's Wisconsin even down at number 14. They're 10-1. They're still going to make the title game in the Big Ten and could potentially get in with a lot of help. So who knows? The Pitt Panthers, though, your bowl projections for this week. The Panthers are projected to play in the Chick-fil-A Bowl still, but they are projected to take on Texas A&M. So a much better opponent with Trevor Knight and the Aggies of Texas A&M. In the Rose Bowl, we got Ohio State, UCLA is the projection. Navy's projected to get in again now to the BCS and take on Baylor in the Fiesta Bowl. Clemson, Michigan in the Sugar Bowl. Miami, LSU in the Orange Bowl. And Oklahoma, Alabama, your national title game. But the games this week could shake that up. The first big one, Penn State taking on Wisconsin. Wow, what a matchup here. Penn State 7-1 in the Big Ten. They are having an unbelievable season, 9-2 so far. Wisconsin 10-1, 7-1 in the Big Ten. Herb Street's picking Wisconsin at home. Their fans are going to be jumping around, and Herb Street sees them coming away with a victory. Michigan taking on Ohio State, the game. Michigan looking to knock Ohio State out of national championship contention. They can't win the Big Ten anymore, but a victory here would be, of course, unbelievable for morale. Jim Harbaugh's squad looking to come away with a win against JT Barrett, your projected Heisman winner. But Herb Street, maybe being a little bit of a homer because he's in, this is his alma mater, but he is going with the Buckeyes to come away with the win. Number 4 offense, or defense, number 1 offense. I mean, you're not wrong going there, Kirk. USC, UCLA, a big matchup again. USC's really having a down year, but if you look at their squad, they're just as good as UCLA. Herb Street sees UCLA winning, but you can't put it past an upset there, especially in a rivalry-type matchup. We've got a lot of rivalry games this week. The Iron Bowl, Alabama, one more win. They stay undefeated for the regular season. Herb Street sees them doing that. And your game of the week, really, your biggest game, number 3 Miami versus number 7 Pitt. And if we take a look at this matchup, Herb Street sees the Hurricanes staying undefeated. They are going to be at home. Panthers are going to have to go to Coral Gables to take on Miami, but they're putting up the number 2 offense in the country against this Miami attack. So Miami, number 29 defense. They do struggle against the run, though, and that's Pitt's real speciality, so it's going to be a big matchup there. The thing that you have to take into account, though, Miami's been missing Brad Kaya for the majority of the season, and yet they've still been able to win out the rest of their schedule. They beat Florida in a tight battle, of course. They've handled their ACC schedule very easily, with the exception of a couple of close games against Florida State and Duke, but they were able to escape all of those unscathed to set up this matchup, and they've really hit, top gear in those last couple of weeks since Kaya's returned from injury. So Rozier, that's why you can see he's their top passer, but he won't be starting for them this week. It will be Brad Kaya, and that's really going to be, the main focal point of this Panthers attack that they're going to have to settle on. Brad Kaya, the best player on Miami, no doubt about it. The junior quarterback has been stellar for them when he's been able to play. You can see he's got 11 touchdowns, just 3 picks, 966 yards, so he's only been able to play in 5 games this season. Of course, he missed with injury from a couple of them, such, hurt his averages and things like that. But he's the guy that you're going to have to step on if you're the Panthers to come away with a victory. And you just look on Miami, so much speed, so many playmakers. Coley's going to be an unbelievable target for them, a good halfback attack as well. So many options and weapons for Miami, both on offense and defense. It's going to make this a very tough opponent for the Panthers. And because of Brad Kaya being in the lineup, we predict Miami to stay unbeaten. They are at home, so they'll have that factor behind them. 38-35 against the Panthers. We think the Panthers, no doubt, their rushing attack is going to be dangerous yet again. They're going to put up points, but their defense, that pass defense that's been so soft for them this year, is going to struggle to hold Kaya and his offense off the board. And with that, we think Miami is going to win. So let us know who you think is going to come away in this massive matchup for the Panthers. We didn't think there'd be any game bigger than the Clemson game this year, and yet we run into a number 7 Panthers team taking on the number 3 Hurricanes. So let us know who you think is going to win, who's going to make the national title game at the end of this season. As always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon. Hail to Pitt. Take care. Bye-bye.